I'm currently reading a book by the name of Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. He also has a podcast, and it's a really good book and it's a really good podcast. He has some amazing guests on it. My friend recommended the book to me, so I bought it, and I'm like somewhat halfway through the book. This morning, as I was reading a chapter in the book where it talks about having a not having a plan B, but sticking to what plan A is. And the story, as I was reading it, he talked about this guy who was like, he was lost. It was a plane crash that happened, and when he woke up 48 hours after the plane crashed, most of the people who were on the plane, most of them had died, and it was probably about 14 survivors. And at the time, they got so desperate because there was no food. They started to drink melted snow, and it got to the point where his mom and his sister had died because of the plane crash. And the survivors that were left, they had to feed off of the dead bodies. Human survival, there's nobody that'll rescue them, so they had to do what they had to do. After 2 months of surviving off of the dead bodies, because he said he made about that, and he said that he would not eat his sister's body and he would not eat his mom's body. So after 2 months, they put together like this makeshift sled, and they sewed together some kind of covering for them to go through the mountains. And they kept going, days went by. They went on this high peak on the mountain, and they could not find like nobody to help rescue them. But in his mind, he had already told himself that he can't go back, because they left about 12 people where they were, because they told him that they were going to find somebody to help rescue them. They kept searching to find somebody to help rescue them. They came across nobody. So it got to the point where their bodies were starting to give out, and for 10 days they were just limping, looking for somewhere to find someone to help rescue them. So they came across this river, and when they saw the river, they saw like footprints, a can of soup, and a horseshoe. So they had known that someone was probably there before. And when they looked across the river, they saw this guy, but their bodies had become so tired that they could not speak anymore. So the guy threw a rock and a piece of paper across the river, and they wrote on it. He sent a message asking them what do they want, and they wrote back to him and threw the rock back to him. And the guy who was on the horse, he traveled for 10 hours to go and find help, and brought back a rescue team to help save them. And also they went back to save the 12 people who survived the plane crash as well. He made the quote, and he said that, hold on, I gotta find the quote. So the quote he made was, the only way you go forward is because you cannot go back. They were willing to keep moving forward, even if it meant that they were about to die on the journey. You hear me? They were still willing to move forward. Sorry, my voice is a little harsh this morning because I'm a little under the weather. But they were willing to go forward, even if it meant that they would have died on that journey of searching for someone to help rescue them. Because their minds had already been set on, if we die, we die. They got the help that they needed. Sometimes it takes us pushing and going forward and not having a plan B to go back. Sometimes it takes us moving forward and not going back because we have no choice to go back. We have to keep moving forward. This is basically it. It has to work, or it has to work. It's no, it won't work. It has to work, or it has to work. We have no plan B. And sometimes in our lives, we have to get to that point where this is going to work. And then the author spoke about his own story. He said when he saw that story, he was about 19 years old when he read that story of that man. And at the time, he was broke. His parents had already deserted him because he dropped out of university and they didn't approve of it. On some days, he said he didn't even have food to eat. And he said hearing that story made him push even more because he had no choice but to go forward. What is it in your life that you truly want? What is it that you truly want and you are willing to die trying to get it? Please don't give up. Do not give up. I know sometimes the journey may get hard. It's going to get hard. But you cannot give up. You have to keep going forward because you have no reason to turn back.